today. So I would like you to let's take a minute to review. The last time that we were together, we learned about an adverb. We learned that it is a word that tells more about an action word or a verb. Today, our objective is that we are going to be able to tell the difference between formal and informal language. Formal language is the language that we should be using in our schoolwork and the language we should use when we're writing or speaking to an adult. Informal language is the language that we like to use with our family or our friends. Good readers think about their audience or the person or people who will read their writing. They also think about the purpose or the reason they're writing and choose the style that's best for that purpose. We're going to read two examples of writing that talks about a play. And I want you to think about which one of those would be something that you might write to a friend and which one might sound more like the beginning of a report for school. Go ahead and read with me. There's this play, Peter Pan. It wasn't bad. Oh, plus this kid I know, Liz, she's in it. I went to see the play Peter Pan. It was very good. Also, a girl I know named Liz was in it. Think for a minute about which one of those options sounds more like something that you would write to a friend, and which one sounds more like something you would write in a report for school. You probably said you thought the first one sounded like something you would write to a friend, and I agree. It has less formal sounding words like contractions in it. For example, it says, it wasn't bad and she's in it. It's less formal when we're using contractions. We would say that the first one is an example of informal writing. So that probably means you thought the second one sounded more like a book report. And I agree with you. It has words like also and a girl named Liz. It sounds more like something that we would write in school on a book report or on a test. We would say that that's an example of formal language. We have two more to try together. These two are examples of thank you notes. Go ahead and read along with me as I read out loud. Thank you for walking my dog. Nice going. Oh, and thanks. Think for a minute about which one of those sounds more like you're talking to a neighbor casually, and which one sounds more formal, like something you'd actually want to write in a card. If you said you thought that the first one, thank you for walking my dog, sounded more like something you would write in a card and more formal, I agree. That would be an example of formal writing. And nice going, oh, and thanks, is probably not something you would put in a card. It's probably something that you would just say to a neighbor. So that's an example of informal writing. We're going to read some sentences now that are written in an informal style, and I'm going to need your help to make them sound more formal. Let's try the first sentence. Want to go to the movie Spiders in Space? That sounds like a way that you'd ask a friend to go to the movies. Think about a word in that sentence that you might want to change to make it sound more formal. You might have realized that wanna sounds pretty informal. Wanna is short for do you want to? So if we change wanna to would you like to go to the movie Spiders in Space? That sounds a little bit more like a polite way of asking someone to do something with you. Let's try the second one. Read along as I read out loud. No way! Spiders are gross. How could we change no way to something that sounds a little more polite? One way you might have realized that we could change no way to a little more formal language is by saying no thank you. Spiders are gross. Can you think of a nicer way to say that they're gross? Now you might have come up with a couple different ways that you could change that they're gross to something that's a little nicer, but one way I thought we could change it is by saying, they bother me. Spiders bother me sounds a lot nicer than spiders are gross. Let's try the third one. Don't read this book, it stinks. Now you may remember that we talked about how contractions like don't are not very formal. How could we change don't to sound more formal? We could say do not. Do not read this book sounds much more polite than don't read this book. How could we change it stinks? What's a nicer way of saying that it stinks? Now you probably came up with a couple of ways that you could change it stinks, but one way I thought we could change it is by saying it's terrible. It is terrible is much more polite than saying it stinks. Do not read this book. It is terrible is a more formal way of saying these sentences. Let's try the last one together. I didn't get the ending at all. Again, we've got a contraction here. How could we change that to sound more formal? We could change didn't into the two words that are put together to make that contraction. Did not. And instead of saying get, we could say understand. I didn't get the ending at all could be changed to I did not understand the ending at all. That sounds a little more formal. Now it's your turn. Think about a time that you got a gift. Pretend to write an informal note to a friend thanking them for that gift. Write what that informal note might say. For example, you might say, "Thanks a lot for my gift." Then I want you to write a more formal note. Pretend like you're writing to a grandparent and thank them in a more formal way. So rather than saying, "Thanks for my gift," you might say, "Thank you very much for my present," or "Thank you for my gift." That sounds a little more formal. Go ahead and take a few minutes to think about how you would write those two thank you notes and give a couple sentences for each one.